This weekend, the Tennessee Vols make history as they play in their first ever playoff game.
Ever since the Michigan game, Ryan and the Buckeyes have counted down the days to redeem themselves in the playoffs.
Welcome to the PCS Volcast Rain ASMR edition. I'm Shea and this is Jace. We cover the SEC and everything Vols, so subscribe for more and like the video if you enjoy the content. Today we're going to look at how each team can win, their key players, and our PCS final score predictions. So, Ohio State hosts Tennessee for the most anticipated game of the weekend in Columbus. The game will be December 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern, and the spread is 7 in Ohio State's favor. So let's jump right into it.
Yes, so obviously, as you said, first ever playoff game, new territory for Tennessee Vols and really everyone in the country with the new 12-team format. So talking about Ohio State, their head coach is Ryan Day. He's been their coach since 2018 when he was an interim for Urban Meyer. And then ever since then, he kind of took over from 2019 and on. His career record is 66-10. Ohio State and Tennessee have played actually only once before in the 1996 Citrus Bowl. Tennessee walked it off with a touchdown in a 20-14 win in UT's favor. Ohio State's last game was a loss to their arch rival Michigan when they lost 13-10, making Ryan Day 1-4 against Michigan. That is terrible for Ohio State. Ohio State fans are in a state of frenzy. And I've heard a lot of them say they want Ryan Day out of there. And to be honest, I think that if Ryan Day and Ohio State lose this playoff game in Tennessee, they're definitely going to be calling for his head, and he could be fired.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people were talking about firing him just for going 10-2 every single year or undefeated or anything. They still want him fired just because he wasn't winning at all every year. But a lot of people thought that was kind of nonsense until this Michigan loss. And people just hopped on that Ryan Day hot seat train.
Yes.
And they're not going to jump off of it until after this game is played.
The expectations at Ohio State and teams like Alabama, Michigan at times, Clemson at times is championship or bust. Georgia, obviously. But for Ohio State, it hasn't even been national championship or bust. It's been Big Ten or bust. Big Ten championship or bust.
True.
And Ohio State has failed to do that a few years now. I mean, losing to Michigan is a cardinal sin if you're an Ohio State fan, player, coach, anything. And Ryan Day, Michigan has been Ryan Day's bane, for a while now. I personally, honestly, kind of agree they should fire him if they lose this game, just because the talent they bring in every year is national championship worthy. And if you're not achieving that potential, why not try to move on to someone else?
Right.
Some general information for this game. We kind of alluded to this already, but Ohio State has a lot of pressure on them to win this game, whereas I feel like Tennessee doesn't really have a lot of pressure. I don't know if the expectations going into Tennessee season was playoffs, but we're very happy we got here. This is a very good step in the right direction in the Nico era, and kind of hoping for national championship hopes this year or the year following with Nico. This is just a good start for that. And then, again, looking at Ohio State, they expect to win in the playoffs. They expect to make and win the national championship, especially in this year where there's not really like an alpha in the country.
Right.
They definitely expect to win it all. Some interesting news as of late. Tennessee fans and kind of national fans were wondering what the seeding would be like and the distribution for Tennessee Ohio State with the first round home games. You'd expect there to be a huge Ohio State majority, but that actually might not be the case. There has been a 42% ticket distribution to Tennessee residents, which is way more than I ever expected. There was actually a story where an assuming Ohio State season ticket holder bought a bunch of tickets and they distributed them to fans, but it was actually a Tennessee resident.
Yeah.
They tricked, I guess, the Ohio State ticket distributors, and that's kind of how Tennessee has gotten all these tickets.
Yeah, the fans are definitely doing their part.
Yes.
Kind of like going into the pressure that you were talking about.
I was just about to say this.
The fans for Ohio State were expecting playoffs no matter what.
Right.
The Tennessee fans kind of were too, but not to the same degree. And us getting 42% of tickets, I think, shows that maybe Ohio State is not taking this game as seriously as we are. Because for them, this is something that happens almost every year, and should be happening every year with the 12-team playoffs. Maybe they're bored or sleepwalking or whatever, Just kind of ready for the final few games, but not us. We're going crazy.
Yes.
Lying, stealing, cheating, anything we can do to get our way into that stadium.
I wouldn't say this is stealing or cheating. I mean, like Michigan, that's cheating. Stealing signs, all that stuff. Yeah, the guy lied, but you got to fact check better. You got to check who you're selling to better, I guess. But Tennessee fans have always traveled well. We wouldn't expect any different in arguably the biggest game in Tennessee's history with the first game of the 12-team playoff. I maybe wouldn't go that far. Obviously, we've been to national championships before, but anyways, you were talking about the pressure. This heightens the pressure on Ohio State because they're going to be in a slightly more hostile environment than they expected, and going against a guy like Ryan Day, who's been shown to choke in rivalry games like Michigan or not perform as well as fans wanted him to in national playoff and all that kind of stuff, all those games. This just adds a little more pressure. But it actually might add a little bit more pressure to the Tennessee team because, as you said, the fans are doing their part. They're showing up. They're going to go crazy. When we do well, they're going to play Rocky Top. So that does add a little bit of pressure to the team to perform up to the fans' expectations since they're going to be at the game. Looking at this game in the context of the whole playoffs, this is actually the closest spread, and I think the next closest one is like 7.5. That might be the Notre Dame one.
Yeah, everyone's surprised by this spread. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't larger.
I kind of was too.
Yeah, 7 is fine now. I've settled with 7. I think that's probably perfect. But to be surprised or to take Tennessee straight up, people are bold.
I think if you look at this as a whole, you give 3, well, maybe not even 3, 1.5 to 2 for home field advantage, and then a field goal or 2 for they do have more talent than us. They've been ranked higher than us, all those things considered. So I think 7 is a pretty good spread there. There's been a lot of talk about how the weather will affect this. All the pundits and all the media people have said, wait till the SEC plays in cold weather, plays in the Big Ten. Do you really think that's a factor? I mean, the low is going to be 14, the high is 27, so it's going to be cold, but snow and rain is unlikely, which I think if it was going to snow, I'd be more worried about that, but yeah, it's just going to be the cold here.
14 as the low is pretty cold, definitely below average here, but not by much. I mean, the average around here during December and January is anywhere from 20 to 40. You don't see it get higher than 40, rarely, so... And the snow too. I mean, it literally snowed a week ago.
Yep.
It was just snowing here, so and people in Ohio are like the most normal, average Joes of all time. Yeah. So there's nothing that they can handle that we can't.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think if it snowed, like heavy snow, it could, but that would also affect the Ohio State players. I don't think this weather should affect the spread, especially if we bring heaters. We do all the things we need to do on our bench. I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, most of these players on both these teams are not from the state that they're playing for, so it's very likely that Ohio State could have a guy from California that's never played in snow until this game, if it is a snowy game.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Tennessee will have players like that too, but yeah.
Nico, he's from California.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, both teams are going to have that.
Yeah, these are some of the top recruiting caliber teams in the country. They recruit from all over the nation. This isn't fact check, but I would assume that the football crop in Ohio isn't necessarily, all the way up there. So if they're just relying on recruiting Ohio players, I don't think they'd be as good as they are, obviously. So you're right about that. And then finally, looking at some of the uniform matchups here, Tennessee has some of the best uniforms in the country, and so it's always pretty anticipated what they're going to be rocking. This Saturday, we have the Stormtrooper uniforms with the all-white helmet. Those are some of my low-key favorites. Obviously, the gray and the black are amazing too, but I think for the first playoff game in Tennessee's history, going with something a little more closer to home, something we wear more often is better, so that when we win, we can have that all over the newspapers. And Ohio State is going to be rocking the all scarlet uniforms, which are pretty good as well.
Yeah, I think the Stormtrooper unis are my second favorite behind the all blacks, like the Halloween edition.
Yep.
I will say my unpopular opinion with uniforms is the smoky grays.
You don't like them?
No, I don't know why. Like the gray and the orange, it's not bad, but I wouldn't say it's
they've gotten a lot better. They used to be kind of bad. Like the gray was just not a very good, appealing color. I do like those quite a bit, but yeah, the black ones are my favorite, but those can only be worn, so many times in a year.
I agree. So now we're going to take a look at how each team can win. Let's start with Tennessee. One of the things I said was find yourself in third and short situations. We see a lot of that, I feel like. The problem is it always gets backed up to 3rd and 12. I mean,
Penalties.
It's a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. We get backed up. We don't convert because we just do some screen. So whenever we do get in 3rd and short, which I think is feasible, let's keep it there.
Yes.
That's all I ask.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. There are, obviously, 2 ways you can move the ball, passing and running. One of my ways to win, which is maintain the run. We don't have to have these big chunk run plays. Obviously, if we do that, help a lot. But we've seen Samson all year be as steady as they come in the country outside of the, Ginties and the Scattabos, all those kind of guys. So he just has to be our rock. He has to be able to move the ball when we need him to. Whenever Nico gets confused, we have to kind of just be able to fall back on Samson. Ohio State's run defense is very, very good. Their whole defense is very, very good in general. But Samson just has to be better this whole game. Yeah, as I said, he needs to be our rock. We need to be able to fall back on him. And then on the passing side, the one area where we can take advantage of them is their secondary, specifically their corners. Caleb Downs is an all-star safety in the country, the transfer from Alabama. He lines up all over the field. He'll be in run defense. He'll cover. Literally, he does everything. But their corners, on the other hand, are not as great. David Igbonoson, I believe, that's how you pronounce it. He's, I think, the most penalized defender in all of football. That's the entire country. And Denzel Burke, their other corner, allows almost 80% completion percentage. So if we get them in a one-on-one situation, Nico has to be able to hit those. And we can win if we get a few chunk plays with the ball in the air.
Yeah, and when we actually get those chunk plays, not every time will it be a touchdown. We see a lot of 40-yard gains from our, just over the middle. One of my things was Max Gilbert can't miss. We usually kind of get down there and stall out. But when that happens, I really need him to be able to control his nerves and make it happen. Because points, I think, are going to be hard to come by in this game.
Yes, that's a really good point, specifically because Ohio State has the number 1 red zone defense in the country. Number 1. And I believe we're somewhere around 90th in the country in red zone offense. So we're not going to be able to get touchdowns all the time in the red zone. And that's okay, but we cannot always settle for field goals.
Exactly.
Whenever we do kick a field goal, Max Gilbert can't miss, especially if it's in the red zone really close. And then we need to, convert 1 or 2 of those possible field goals to touchdowns if possible. I want to see some going forward on 4th downs. We need to play better red zone efficiency than we usually do, even if they have an amazing red zone defense.
Really, I just don't want to see too many overthrows from Nico. 1 or 2 is completely fine. We've seen it all season. It's just you got to accept it at this point. And Samson his fumbling problem is unacceptable. That definitely cannot be showing up in this game. We cannot afford any turnovers, especially if we have a good drive going, and that's when they seem to happen the most.
Yep. Yeah, consistency is always key, especially against a really, really, really good team like Ohio State. That was kind of going back to what I was saying in my first key to win. Also, this is not a key to win, but as a fan, a key to stay happy and to not get too pissed off is we have to be a little bit lenient, I think, with Nico this game, because I think what's going to happen is we're going to be able to get open more often than not if our receivers play well enough. Thornton, I think, can beat him over top because they do run a lot of man. They run more man than probably anyone that we played, except for maybe outside of Alabama and Kentucky. We're going to be able to get open. We're going to be able to have those man beaters, and we're probably going to have more opportunity to throw it deep and some of the more difficult throws than usual. Nico's not going to hit all of them. We need to know that going in. He just has to hit enough to keep our offense moving. Now, looking at the defensive side of the ball, it's imperative that we get pressure without blitzing. Their receivers are going to beat us. It's same thing both ways. They have the most elite receiving core, and it's not close in the country, and they're going to beat us eventually. So we have to be able to drop back a few guys and still be able to rush the passer. When we talk about their receivers, their top 3, Jeremiah Smith is arguably the best receiver in the country. I have him at number 2 behind Trey Harris. Emeka Egbuka, their slot guy, super quick, super twitchy. And then Carnell Tate, who is a sore spot for a lot of Tennessee fans. He originally committed to Tennessee and then opted to commit to Ohio State later on in his recruiting trail.
Yeah, you Tate.
Yeah,
we didn't want you anyway.
No, well, maybe. He's probably going to have a legacy game. That's just going to be how it goes. But they're all good in different positions. Tate, kind of a versatile Swiss Army knife, can line up everywhere on the field, very physical. Egbuka, as I said, very quick, more of a slot guy, quick passes. And then Jeremiah Smith is just a beast. Like, he is so good at everything, very few weaknesses. But going back to Tennessee and their other defensive way to win, is we have to stay composed defensively. There's going to be times where they're going to get chunk plays. They're going to throw a bomb to Jeremiah Smith. He's going to moss, our corners and whatnot. But we just have to stay composed. We cannot let that affect us, and Tim Banks cannot alter his game plan too much, because I have confidence that he can call a good game plan. Everything that Ohio State has is right in front of us. They're probably not going to do that much different. So, they will get yards to the air, only if Ryan Day calls good plays, which has not been something he's been very good at recently. And then, obviously, no flags defensively. Their offense has a chance to be super potent, and giving them any more opportunities with flags is a no-no for sure.
All right, and then moving on to Ohio State, the first thing I said was get the tight ends involved, because their top 3 tight ends probably add up to about 30 receptions in all. And I think our biggest weakness on our defense is the linebackers, and you can abuse linebackers through tight ends. We've already seen it before. I think if they did that, it'd be a big help for them.
I agree. I 100% agree with everything you said. I mentioned that all-star receiving trio earlier. They kind of just force-feed all of them the ball. Not force-feed, but they use them the most out of anyone on their offense. They don't really have a whole lot of running back receptions either, so it's just going to be kind of line up on that line of scrimmage, corner versus receiver, who's better kind of thing. But I had something similar. I just said spread the ball around too much. Don't pull in Alabama and force the ball to Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith in this case 100 times. They have more guys on the outside that can beat us. So, spread the ball around, keep us on our toes. If they get a 30-yard reception for Jeremiah Smith and then a 6-yard run with Judkins and then a 20-yard catch for Emeka Egbuka, just really spread everything out, leave all your options open if you're the Buckeyes.
Another thing I said, and this might not be as true because of all the Tennessee fans that are about to be there, but use the home field advantage that you're about to get. Mm-hmm. With this home field playoff game, it's going to be a huge deal to the fans. So use it to cause flags. Like, Tennessee, we are so good at getting flags called on us. Yep. So use the home field advantage to just cause some more.
Yes. I didn't even include flags in my ways to win because it should be obvious at this point. I mean, Tennessee has been the master at shooting ourselves in the foot all season, and we've been bad on the road too, relatively. Yes, I agree with everything you're saying, and although they should use the home field advantage to cause flags, we don't really need that much help to accrue penalties on ourselves, to be honest. It's been bad all year. The next point I have, this is probably the most important thing in the entire game. Ryan Day has to call a good game plan. He failed to do that against Michigan, but and some other times this year, Ohio State fans have been pretty unhappy with him in terms of the plays he calls. But I think, looking at the matchups, staying pass heavy is ideal, but again, do not focus on that. Try to mix it up relatively, but you've got to use your best players with that receiving trio. I think even though our secondary has been a lot better than Tennessee fans thought it would be going into the season with the emergence of superstar Jamal McCoy and Ricky Gibson playing well as well, Ohio State still is better than us in that area of the game, and they are better than anybody else in the country when it comes to that as well.
Looking back at the Arkansas game, there's something that Arkansas did that Ohio State can do, which is hold the ball and then score. The less opportunity you give to this Vols offense, it just helps with the likelihood of them scoring anything, because I think whenever we have our big games, it's because we had so many opportunities that were caused from the defense that helped us out. But if you just hang on to it and then score at the end too, you take away half the quarter or the whole quarter, looking back at the Arkansas game, you're probably going to win the game against us.
Yep, that's a very good game plan against us in general. You're very right about that. Even though I've been talking up their receiving core and their offensive players a lot, their strength is their defense. They are probably the best defensive team in the country, give or take a few teams here and there. But yeah, I mean, if you hold the ball, let your best aspect of your team stay on the field the longest, which is your defense, that's a pretty good game plan. Looking back at their offense, though, Will Howard must stay composed. He's been pretty good all season at doing so, except for that Oregon game when he slid with no time remaining. But he's, a glorified field general, and that's not to take anything away from him. I think he's the best field general in the country if you're opposing it like that. 72.3% completion percentage, which is pretty good. He's a willing runner, and he's pretty good in the red zone as well. So overall, pretty good quarterback. But yeah, he must stay composed against this Tennessee front, which is the strongest part of our team. Yeah, I mean, he has to be able to use his legs when he needs to, be able to throw the ball away or trust receivers when he needs to, and taking a costly sack or giving the ball to Tennessee is not what you want to do at all in this game, even though their defense is really solid.
Yeah, I completely agree. Will Howard has got to get the ball out quickly because one of our ways to win was to get pressure with just 4, and sometimes we can do that when it's called up nicely. But when that happens, he just has to be ready to get the ball out. You chuck it down the field, your guy's probably going to catch it. You never know, unless he's going up against McCoy. But don't have any weird, idiotic runs. Just don't do anything crazy. Get the ball out quickly to the guys that you can count on, and they're going to make plays for you.
Except for that one Oregon game, as I said, Will Howard hasn't really choked a lot this year. And at the end of the Michigan game a little bit as well. It's been more Ryan Day who have been cracking under pressure, I guess. But going on to the defensive side for Ohio State, you really have to make sure to contain Nico's legs. I think that can be a huge storyline in this game. As I said, Ohio State runs a lot of man. So whenever you do get clamped up, or whenever you do clamp up on Tennessee's receivers, you have to capitalize on that good defensive play and cannot let Tennessee create anything outside of the man coverage that you run. One way for Ohio State to limit Nico's legs is a guy like, Caleb Downs, as I already mentioned, or Cody Simon, their middle linebacker, kind of a leader and a signal caller, if you will, for their defense. The one thing that Ohio State does lack a little bit in their all-star front line is speed. I'm not saying they're slow, but they're just not overly fast, kind of like a James Pierce is, Joshua Joseph, like Tennessee has. So you got to have one of those guys, past your defensive line, like a Cody Simon or a Downs, to monitor Nico. And then the final thing defensively is just try to limit the run. I don't think anyone in the entire country can stop Dylan Sampson straight up, but you just got to try to limit it. No gash plays. Make Nico beat you is what I'm trying to say. If you limit Dylan Sampson to 100 yards on 27 carries, you pretty much did your job in that regard. Because Sampson is the engine of our offense, and he always will be, always has been. So, yeah, just try to manage our running attack as best as possible and make Nico beat you in the air.
And looking at the key players, I think mine starts with Will Howard because he is the perfect example of just doing what will win you the game and nothing more. And I think that's kind of all he needs to do in this game as well. He's a boring quarterback. Just play a boring game. Do whatever you can to not lose it for your team.
I think Will Howard is a little bit better than the credit you just gave him. I'm not saying he's a Tom Brady or whatever, but he's a really good player. He'll throw in that run every now and then or that really impressive pass, and he just doesn't really make a whole lot of mistakes. He's not impenetrable, obviously, but on the other side, I said the Tennessee secondary, specifically Jermon McCoy. In a previous video, I wanted to see what it would look like for us to match up against these elite receivers of Ohio State, and here we are. I got that wish, and oh boy, does Jermon McCoy in our secondary have a tall task against them. I have confidence, though. That's not something I ever thought I would say in the recent years with the Tennessee secondary, but I'm looking forward to it. Now, if we just get burnt, they just get butt naked wide open every play, oh well. We tried our best, and yeah, but I'm really looking forward to a possible Jermon McCoy legacy game matching up against the best receivers in the country.
The next one will be Nico, just because Nico is such a wild card. We're still waiting for that ultra insane breakout game that we believe he's capable of. I don't think it'll be this one, but it definitely could be. And if it is, we're definitely winning. That's how I see it.
I agree.
And on the flip side of that, if he has 6 overthrows and 2 terrible picks, we're definitely losing. So, unlike Will Howard, I don't think he can be boring. I do think he's going to have to be a little bit above average.
Playmaker.
He's got to be a playmaker. If Heupel's calling those screens, you better get your ass out there and block for the receiver.
Yes,
I mean,
anything.
Do something and limit your turnovers and be a little bit better than boring.
Yeah, I had Nico too. He has to be a 5-star this game. He has to make plays. He has to use his legs. He has to hit. He has to be accurate. I didn't have Dylan Sampson because, again, I'll say this again. I don't think he can single-handedly win us a game. He could go out there, have 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. We still might not win. Nico just has to put us on our back more or less because I think these receivers can get separation. I think that Dylan Sampson is going to have a lot of yards, a lot of carries. The question marks is our O-line and Nico, which, those two guys, those two groups just need to be really, really good this game.
Another one that I've been saying very often is coaching. Heupel did surprise me against Alabama and a little bit against Georgia as well. I think he's gotten a lot better as the year has gone on, but still nothing insane. He's still pretty predictable. You know what you're about to see from Dylan Sampson. You know what you're about to see on 3rd and long. But how crazy can he get on 1st and 2nd down? I think he can really whip up something nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have the players to do it, but he's got to really just pull something crazy out of his bag. We hope that he's been holding on to something, or we don't. I don't know, but people say that all the time. Either way, it just has to be good enough to push us down the field and not so bad that I want to, rip my eyes out every play.
I mean, if we see 3rd and 12, some little run, or now, please, this is not the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Their cornerbacks are gettable. We can get Thornton streaking down. They can catch him. Squirrel, Brew, anybody, just throw it up. Yeah, we cannot see that in a playoff game. That's just terrible.
Yeah.
I actually saw an interview recently where Heupel, they were asking Heupel, what's the game plan going to be for Ohio State? He just looked at the camera and said, nothing new. Same stuff as ever, and he started laughing about it.
I believe him.
Which, that's good and bad because our offense, I think, can work if called correctly against this defense. But if he's talking about the play calling, then I'm not looking forward to that so much. My next key player was a combination of Gilbert and the Tennessee red zone efficiency. We cannot win this game by just kicking field goals. So what I mean by Gilbert is he has to make the ones that he is kicking, but he can't be kicking all of them. We have to go for it on 4th down, as I said. We have to be getting some touchdowns. And again, it's a tall task with this really, really good red zone efficient defense, but we just got to push through it. We just have to try to get some touchdowns. And then my last one for Tennessee, this is kind of a wild card, but so is he, is Boo Carter. We're probably going to need some electric punt return or some, turnover from Boo Carter on defense. He has emerged as a superstar for us, and, we need to see that here in a playoff game. He needs to make his presence known to the country. And, yeah, that would just be electric if he had some punt return touchdown or something like that in this game.
Yeah, and I will also say our O-line is another key factor in this game just because they're the ones that really cause the majority of our penalties. They're the ones that are going to give comfort to Nico, or they're going to make him feel distressed. So What's it going to be this game? We know that they're great run blockers. The pass blocking is iffy, if not bad. So just try to do your best, the O-line. That's all I can ask.
Yeah, and they also have a tall task. I mean, the Ohio State defensive line is exceptional, as I've said. Looking at Ohio State, I kind of have a combo. Ryan Day and just their running back duo, they need to get as much juice out of their running back duo as possible with as few runs called as possible. I say it like that because they do want to go pass heavy, but Day does need to sprinkle in a mix of both. This running back duo can be efficient when called upon, but are they going to make bigger plays for the Ohio State offense is the question. And the last Ohio State key player I had is just their defensive superstars, Riddle along that D-line, and then Caleb Downs, Simon, as I was talking about. They need to show why they're some of the best defenders in the country and really lead this Ohio State team to a victory. They're, like Sampson for Tennessee, is their engine. That's why they go, and they got to go against Tennessee here in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And what you're all here for. This is the best part of every video, the PCS final score predictions. So, Jason and I, if you don't know, every week we use the PCSonline.com to predict the final score of the Tennessee matchup that weekend. And this weekend, it just so happens to be our first ever playoff game. So it's very exciting. We did it all season long. You can do it too at the PCSonline.com. And Jace did end up winning overall on the season,
Of course.
we have our own playoffs as well. We're going to be predicting every playoff game as they go, starting this week till next week and so on. So stick around for that video as well. But we got a game to predict. I will start. I see this being very similar to the Penn State game. Both offenses kind of and Michigan, just kind of being lackluster and mistake prone, and how are you not scoring here type of questions are going to be getting asked. So I see it being pretty low scoring, and these are some good defenses. So give me Tennessee to win a very close one, 24-20.
I like that. I'll spoil my prediction a little bit. I'm kind of surprised we both had Tennessee winning. When the matchup first got announced, I was kind of more or less hopeless because Ohio State is amazing. They're very, very good. But as the days have gone on, and I've heard more about the ticket distribution and just thinking about doing research, thinking about certain matchups, I really do have hope. And two of those things that I've been thinking about recently as I've done research are kind of what's going to make the pendulum swing for this game, if you will. That is that our secondary, if they can compete, I think we'll have a good chance to win this game. And, also, as I said, the ticket distribution, but also just thinking about how we'll recover from that Michigan game. There's two sides that could go. One is they recover great and they win by a lot maybe, or they are down the dumps and Ryan Day will probably be out of Columbus. So, the fact that I just want Tennessee to win, and the fact that I have a really good track record with predicting who is going to win, not necessarily the score, but who is going to win. I was only wrong with Arkansas this year. I'm going to say Tennessee's going to win in an overtime game. I think that it will be 24-24 at the end of regulation. I think that both teams will score a touchdown on their first possessions. Tennessee will get a field goal, whereas Ohio State will not. So I'm going to say 37-34 Tennessee in overtime.
That is so crazy specific that it might be extremely accurate. I agree with you. I think the final score of regulation will be in the 20s, low 20s, because seeing this 37-34, that's a little mind-boggling, seeing as the majority of our scores have been really low against actual competition.
Yep.
But I respect it.
Yeah, this might be a little hopium. I don't know, but I just want us to win so bad. I don't know what to say. If we do lose, I just want it to be a hard-fought game. It's not a blowout, But I don't know what to expect. First ever playoff. This is the primetime game in the country in terms of the first-round playoff matchups. So I feel like an overtime game could be kind of magical here, and we walk it off with a field goal, Max Gilbert field goal for the win.
Now, if you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said that we'd get blown out. But like you said, I don't know why. It's like I'm just feeling a little momentum from this past week. Just getting that extra week of waiting. I'm realizing that we might not be as, incomplete as I'm thinking. But
the other thing is we struggled with injuries at the end of the Vanderbilt game, just kind of limping at the end of the season.
True.
All those guys, Brew, Sampson, Squirrel, and our lineman injuries all should be back at this point.
Thank goodness.
By the time Saturday kicks off.
Again, thank you so much for listening. This has been the PCS Volcast ASMR Rain Edition. This has been Shea and Jace.
Go Vols!
Go Vols!